Welcome to another session. I hope you were well. In today's session, I want to uh, provide another building block to the conversations that we have had over the past few sessions around the central theme, which I have called Men of Honor. This is directed towards men, but I think today's session particularly applies for both sexes. Whether you're male or female, I believe today's session will be of some value to you. Let me start by sharing something personal, an encounter, an experience, a time in my life. This is many, many, many years ago. I found myself in a very, very difficult point in time. I was very young. I was um, working and I was studying. And I found that on one particular day, I had, prior to that particular event, a number of challenging moments. And on this particular day, I sat in my room and feeling very down, feeling sad, feeling sorry for myself. In my effort to distract myself, I reached out and I picked up a book that was in my room, and I began to read the book. As I read the book, I recognizing that at this point in my life, I was things were not really good for me. I was struggling mentally and emotionally, financially, in all areas of life. I was performing below my expectations, and the feeling was as though everything was against me. I couldn't find answers. The pain was becoming unbearable. And so, in this particular day, this evening, I pick up a book and I start to read. I only picked up that book because I was tired of the thoughts going through my head, very, very negative thoughts, in a repeat loop. As I started to read the book, after a while, I noticed something strange. I noticed the tears were running down my cheeks. Very strange, because up until that time, I wasn't one who was known to shed tears regularly, put it that way. But as I noticed the tears running down my cheeks, I was shocked. I had a feeling that came past, went through me at the same time. It was a feeling of gladness, peace, happiness. At the same time, simultaneously, there was a second emotion, a second feeling, and that was a feeling of sadness. Weird, very strange. Now, how can you have two opposite feelings within a very short period of seconds between each other? The first feeling of gladness and happiness was because something in that book resonated with me. I had found answers. Up until that time, I had been searching, looking for answers. Or, in my opinion, I thought I had been looking for and searching for answers. But I was doing my best, but my best was not good enough. That book and the words and the letters and the experiences in that book gave me hope. Suddenly, I realized I was not alone. I had found answers, and the author of the book was describing, in their own words, how they had overcome a similar problem and how they thrived and stood firm and found success at the end of that journey. So I had a formula for success to help me overcome my challenges. Now, the second emotion, the one of sadness and sorrow and pain, was because I realized that the book I was reading, I had bought the book many, many years before. That book has sat on my shelf for years and years and years, but I had never picked it up to read. The feeling of sadness and sorrow was the realization that all of the pain and suffering that I had gone through, most of it could have been avoided. It was a choice. Nonetheless, I have found answers. That began a journey for me, which is a journey of personal development and growth, and the need to seek for knowledge, to read, to research, to read broadly, to read widely, but never to stop developing yourself and seeking new information and new knowledge. That forms the basis of today's session, a session that will be short. I want to encourage you as men and even women to develop and acquire the desire, the habit of constant and continuous learning and development. Personal growth and improvement should be perhaps one of the most important things you should have as a man of honor. One of the reasons for that is we never know enough. You see, those who were responsible for you gave you the best that they could and the best that they had. And in many ways, there are two forms of knowledge we need to be successful in life. The first, we go through education, and the purpose of that is to teach you how to read and write. Fundamentally, the reason for that is so that you can actually go forward and seek more information and more knowledge to enable you to have a successful, productive life and to allow you to push towards your potential. No one is better than you, and you're certainly not better than anyone. You see, superiority and inferiority are two sides of a counterfeit coin. You have everything anyone else has. The spirit within you is animating you. The intellectual faculties you have exist in every single person. Some have developed theirs much more than you. You may not have the wisdom or the experience, but you have access to people who have lived and who've documented the experiences. And therefore, I learned as part of that journey something that has stayed with me forever, which is there are two ways of living life and learning. You can learn and you can live life through your experiences alone. Unfortunately, your experiences come with mistakes if you haven't been taught properly. The second way is you can learn by living vicariously through the lived experiences of other people, through mentors and coaches and inspirational people and people you look up to. By doing so, as I found in this particular instance in my case, a life well lived, condensed 40 years of success, condensed into a book that took me 4 hours to read. And in that 4 hours, I had a blueprint for success. But the blueprint was 40 years of someone else's experience. And therefore, success compounds and failure compounds. And in order for you to transcend and be successful, you can take the experiences of other people, you can gather a lot of those experiences, and the law of large numbers will work in your favor. Point number one is you need to become very good and have a high level of desire for learning and for reading. I'm going to address the whole concept of reading. In our time, in this day and age, we consume information in various ways. Back in the day, we didn't have social media and we didn't have all of these platforms that have made access to information much easier. I still believe that reading is the best way to study. In order to raise your understanding, you have to study. You do so by seeking information. Through study, you are afforded the opportunity to learn and see and understand how life works. Look back in history. Mark Twain said history doesn't repeat itself, but it rhymes. There are certain things that provide you with gate posts, signposts, things you can look to help you understand the present. Yes, it may not tell you what the future will be, but it enables you to understand self-mastery, self-determination, self-focus, and helps you move to a self-actualization. So, number one, become a good learner. Number two, read. I think personally, and this is a personal perspective, now this is perhaps contradictory to what I'm doing now, because I'm sharing this by video and I'm hoping you would listen. But I believe that the likes of YouTube and all the other platforms that provide opportunities for condensed information, by virtue of the fact that there is so much out there, is made learning much more difficult, but most importantly, is made study a lot harder for most people. The average person reads one book or less every single year. Prior to YouTube and social media, that number was much higher. So my second recommendation to you to become a man of honor is to get really good at learning how to sit down in one place, block out all distractions, pick up a book and study. Do not just read the book, study the book. Study with intention, study with focus, study with a mission and an aim. Extract as much gold as you can from the books you read. Number 3 is read very broadly, read widely, and read enthusiastically. Do not focus too much about reading fast. There is so much that is said about being able to read as fast as possible. I don't necessarily see, from a perspective of asymmetry, I don't understand or see the benefit of speed reading. I would rather have you slow down, study properly, even if it takes you 2 days or 3 days or 4 days, but digest the information thoroughly, rather than very quickly scanning through a book to get to the end. Your acres of diamonds are around you, and the more you allow yourself to feed your mind, the more you have the tools and the knowledge and the wisdom, the discernment, the good judgment to help you identify where those acres of diamonds are. So study broadly, study with intent, study enthusiastically. I would recommend you develop the habit, and this is number 3, of reading biographies and autobiographies. One of the reasons for this is that it allows you to understand how other people overcame incredible odds. The more you read, you see, human beings are more alike than we are different. The more you read lives of people who have either failed or succeeded, what you start to develop is a sense of how much you have in common with those who are successful. But you develop a level of humility in understanding how much you have in common with those who failed. Success and failure are opposite sides of the same coin, and there's a razor's edge between success and failure. Success leaves clues, failure leaves behind tracks. And if you study the lives of people who have failed and the people who have succeeded, what you see is a pattern of behavior, a pattern of thinking, an attitude, a philosophy, a way of life, a paradigm or habit, or culture those people had in both camps. And what you can do is extract from that things you should avoid and the things you should focus on. So study broadly. Now, the first part of my journey of self-development began with study. And after many, many years of reading and learning, my mentor said to me, "You have studied books that you have chosen, and you've leaned towards philosophies that you resonate with, and that is all fine. But," he said, "the second phase of your learning is you need to go find people who are just as capable and as accomplished as the mentors or the books you read, but find people on the opposite side. People who had a philosophy that was different, or who had a position that was different to what you have come to choose as your philosophy of life." The reason for this is, if you think about it, I'm not sure about you, but let me speak to myself. Many, many years ago, we do not do this these days. If you were in a debate team, you had a coach, a debate coach. The debate coach will give you a topic of study. You were not told whether you would be debating for or against the motion, but you were told to prepare. As such, you had to study to be able to argue for one side, but also argue for the opposite side. Therefore, there was no bias, ideally, because the intention was for you to debate properly. On the day of the debate, at the moment it was about to start, the coach will assign people, in my case me, to one side or to the other side. And at that point, you had to then provide usually a dispassionate analysis of what you have studied. You see, to come up with compassionate solutions, you must be willing to participate in dispassionate analysis. You put emotions aside, you put your biases and priors aside, and you address the matters at hand. The idea and the intention was not to win the debate. The idea was for you to be able to articulate a position carefully, thoughtfully, in a manner that allowed you to move towards an objective. Could you get the person on the other side to see something that they may have missed? Now think about this concept. When we drive looking forward at the windscreen. We have a side view mirror and we have a rear side mirror. We do not drive looking at the rear side mirror or the side mirrors. We drive looking forward. But if we want to overtake, or we want to turn, or we want to make maneuvers, we have to look at the side mirrors or the rear mirrors just in case we have blind spots. In debates, the role of the person speaking is to elaborate on the ideas carefully so that the opposite side might see something in themselves that they did not realize was there, or come into a state of resonance with a new concept that empowers them to a level higher than where they were before. It's not about winning. It's about advancing towards a place of awareness and understanding. To do this as a man of honor, you have to study people who you resonate with, but you also have to study philosophies and ideas and theories and thought leaders that you disagree with completely. The purpose of that is that you can take one side of the ledger and you can place it alongside the opposite side of the ledger, and you can see not necessarily which is superior. You see, a broken clock is right twice every day. A broken clock is right once every 12 hours. That's 8.33%. I have seen people who studied a particular philosophy and therefore they say anything that they do not agree with is false. A broken clock is right twice every day, 8.33%. So if you believe that any philosophy that is not consistent with what you believe in is wrong, then what that indicates is that you have biases, you have priors, you're prejudiced towards a particular side, and you're not really skilled at the art of knowing how to debate. Now, I'm not suggesting that once you can argue both sides, that you're not allowed to do what we call the net position, which is you take the positives and the negatives, you put them alongside each other, and what you have is a net position, meaning some things are right in the opposite side, and some things are wrong on your side. Wisdom is knowing the difference, the ability to distinguish where things are different. As a man of honor, you have to have wisdom and understand the difference between good and bad, right and wrong, but most importantly, the patience, the humility of understanding other people's perspectives. Now let me close today's session with perhaps something that I think might be a way of encouraging you. Between 18 and 35, you have 18 years. I consider those to be the years that a man should prepare himself for the future he wants to lead. In those 18 years, at the end of the 18th year, you should have read at least 1,000 books. But that is possible. If you read one book a week, there are 52 weeks in a year. Across 18 years, you should have read at least 1,000 books. If those books consisted of biographies and autobiographies, history, philosophy, psychology, theology, finance, sociology, and all the ologies, what it creates is a vocabulary of words, a vocabulary of overcoming all odds that come your way. But most importantly, it allows you to go in your imagination where your body cannot go by geography. As a man of honor, you must learn and cultivate the habit of being a good student. You must become a student leader. And let me stop here for now. And I hope today's session has been of some value to you.